Replacing the ball screw on the Onefinity CNC. Start by wrapping a soft cloth around the ball screw on the end opposite the motor. With the cloth wrapped around the ball screw, place your vice grips onto the ball screw. We're then going to use a 17mm socket to loosen the nut on the end of the ball screw. Next, we're going to loosen the wipers on the ends of the ball screw with a 2.5mm hex key. Now we can use a 4mm hex key to loosen the two bolts holding the ball nut to the gantry. Now we can slide the gantry off of the ball nut. Our next step is to remove the motor using an 8mm wrench and a 4mm hex key. Before removing the motor, we need to remove the inner tube wire from the bottom tube. Using a 3mm hex key, we'll flip the rail over and remove the bolt farthest from the motor. We can now use a pair of needle nose pliers to gently pull on the connector on the end of the wire. We'll then move to the opposite end of the rail and remove the wire from the tube. We can now gently pull the motor off of the foot, bringing the ball screw through the foot as we pull. Using a 2.5mm hex key, we can remove the coupler on the ball screw side and pull the motor off the end of the ball screw. We can now use a ratchet with a 19mm socket to remove the nut from the motor end of the ball screw. As you can see, we're going to use a soft towel once more to cover the ball screw while we clamp it down with our vice grips. We can remove the washer and the nut. We will remove our vice grips and our towel. Next, we'll come in with a 3mm hex key or driver, and we will remove all 4 bolts holding the foot onto the end of the rail. Once all 4 of those bolts are removed, we can gently pull on the foot and it should come loose from the end of the rail, bringing the ball screw with it. Now that we have the ball screw removed, let's replace it with a new one. When we put our new ball screw in, we want to make sure that the oil port is facing the correct direction. If the front of the rail is on your left, the oil port will face away from you. With the ball screw loosely in place, we can slide the foot back onto the end of the rail. With the foot in place, we'll reinstall the wiper with the bearings as well as reinserting the tube wire into the bottom tube of the rail. With the wiper and bearings in place, we can now place the washer as well as the nut back on the end of the ball screw and secure it. Once again, wrap a soft cloth around the ball screw and use your 19mm socket to tighten the nut down. Next, use a 2.5mm hex key or driver to tighten the coupler back down onto the new ball screw. With the coupler on the new ball screw, we can now push the motor back into the rail and slide the gantry onto the ball nut. We will now resecure the ball nut to the gantry using the screws and a 4mm hex key. Next, we're going to use our tube end cap and place that around our motor connector. We can place that back into the tube, making sure that the hole on it is facing down so it will line up with the bottom of the foot. Using a 3mm hex key, we will replace all of the bolts that hold the feet to the tubes. With our feet secured, we can now replace the bolts on the motor using our 8mm wrench and our 4mm hex key to secure them. Our last step is to replace the washer and the nut on the end of the ball screw. Once again, we're going to wrap it with a towel and use our vice grips, then tighten it down. Once we've done this, we are going to tighten our wipers back down on the ends of the ball screw, and we have successfully completed replacing the ball screw on the Onefinity CNC.